Welcome to the Eurostep Brit podcast.
Under 10 seconds. Game's going to be decided here. Harold spots up. Doesn't go. Put back is good. Roberto Canada with a second chance opportunity. Aris lead. Per Gunther for three. Got it. Per Gunther, 3 punta. Holland. Pull up three, no good. Orcus, the offensive board. He turns around and shoots. Got it at the buzzer!
Hello, welcome to episode 26 of the Eurostep Brit podcast. We'll call this one, Where in the World is John Coffino? Many people in the UK will know John Coffino from his season with the Cheshire Phoenix, but that was just one stop in a global journey. To borrow a movie quote, the world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. Over the course of this episode, you'll get insight into some of the pitfalls that surround or have surrounded the sport we love, but also how each stop around the world has shaped John Coffino into the person he is today. There's quite a few stories that John shares in his interview, but there's a lot more that we just didn't get time to cover. You could say John's career might be ideal for a book one day. So buckle up, sit back, and without further ado, let's get to it. So John, welcome to the podcast. It's great to catch up with you after so many years. It's been at least a decade since I spoke to you in person. Obviously, we caught up on Facebook and Messenger over the years. I want to start with, you'll soon be able to be called a Hall of Fame coach, won't you?
Yeah, how about that? I can't believe it. It's where I got my start. And I got a letter from the athletic director in the school saying, they ask you first, they ask you if you'd like to be inducted. And I was like, is this a joke? Are you guys playing a prank on me or something? Because I've been going, when I'm in town, I go to the dinners, and sometimes I speak, especially if it's some of the players that are getting inducted. So it's an incredible honor, and everybody's so excited that's coming, and it's going to be a packed house, and I'm looking forward to it. It's something that I always look back to as far as where I got my start, and how grateful I am for the coach Ralph Arrieta to see something in me and support me.
So this is Westchester in New York, yeah?
Westchester, it's in the suburbs of New York City. It's about 40 minutes north of New York City. It's a very wealthy, affluent county, probably the most affluent county in the country. And it's a beautiful school, beautiful campus, and it's all commuters. There's no dormitories, so everybody travels to and from there.
So you've been coaching over 30 years, and it was Westchester Community College where you got your coaching start. Is that right?
Correct. That was, yeah. I mean, I've coached little kids before that, but I really, before that, I was a player. I tried out for the team and I made it. It's a funny story, but if you have time, I'll tell you. But it was
your podcast, John. Go for it.
I walked into the hall, as you guys call it, the gym, and I said, I'd like to try for the team. And they said, okay. And I was massively out of shape, and every day in the tryouts, I would run out to the bathroom and relieve myself as far as whatever I ate, in my stomach. I was really sick, and it turns out I made the team. I was the only Caucasian player, which didn't bother me. Of course, I was, I grew up in the Bronx, and I played basketball with everybody, all sorts of different walks of life. And it was an amazing thing. And I played a year there, which was probably the worst team he's ever had. So it's kind of ironic because he's got an unbelievable program there. He's got over 1,000 wins. He's got, he's been to the national championships 10 times. He's in 5 Hall of Fame. So I didn't realize I stepped into such a incredible program. And after the year was over, brought me in the office and he says, "Hey, how'd you like to coach? Because I have a position open, and I think you're going to be you have something in you." And I said, "Yeah. I mean, I don't want to chase everybody around practice anymore. I'm a little older." And he says, "Think about it for 2 weeks." I said, No, I'll take it. I'll take it. He goes, No, go home. Think about it. That's the kind of guy he was. He was very patient, very thorough. And I accepted the job, and, he says, listen, I need you to do all the legwork. I need you to get me all the players, bring them up here. I'll sign them, and then we'll see what we could do. And we wind up putting good teams together. Finally, and we went to the Nationals in a huge upset win against a team that had way more talent than us, and it was the highlight of my career. And it was just an amazing run at Westchester. And I was going to school at the time. I was coaching and I was working. So it was a busy day. And I would drive 4 or 5 players to and from the school at the last train stop in the Bronx. And it was a long day. And after a while, I told the coach, I said, I think I'm going to focus on my academics and just take a year off. And he goes, well, if you leave, I'm going to retire because you're my last hope. And sure enough, I left, and he kept calling me and saying there's other schools that are looking for you, higher levels. And so a Division I school in New York, Iona, called and said, hey, we'd like for you to be here, come join our staff, and we'll pay for your education. And that was the beginning of my first step on the ladder.
That's when you got the bug. So for the first few years of your coaching career, or quite a few years, you obviously were stateside. I've seen on your profile, you went in the D League, which of course is the G League these days. You went to St. Peter's College, Albuquerque Thunderbirds in D League. What if I could just push you a bit forward? In 2011, you get the chance to go to Qatar. That's the first international. Because this is how I know you, John. Is because obviously over the years you have travelled so many places around the world, but this was the first time you got a chance to go abroad. Yes,
That's correct. I actually, after the D League, I went to Los Angeles and stayed with my sister, and I got a call from the Los Angeles Lakers general manager, Mitch Kupchak, and he says, John, can you come in and see me tomorrow? And I said, sure. In your office? He goes, yeah. I go, okay, I know where it is. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm getting a job with the Lakers. I was all excited. So I go in his office, and he goes, why didn't you tell me you knew this guy and that guy? I grew up with him. And he goes, listen, how would you like, or would you be interested in coaching high school basketball? I said, in Los Angeles? I said, I don't know if I could survive financially. He goes, well, it's $100,000 a year. It's a big time school, and I can't promise you, but I'll I'll recommend you get an interview. And I did. I had a really great interview, but they wound up hiring someone else. So I decided, a friend of mine who had a scouting service for the NBA, he worked for the NBA, he says, will you be my California rep and go to all the university games and send me back scouting reports on all these possible draft picks? And I did for a year. So that was my gap year between the D League and overseas. And then I started getting, agents calling me up and saying, hey, I got a job in Bahrain. I got a job in China. I got a job this. And then someone that knew, had a mutual friend, he said, Qatar's looking for a coach, cutter, as they say, cutter. And that was my first job. Yeah, that's correct. I went over there and I didn't speak Arabic. I didn't know much about Islam. And it was an eye opener, but I went a little bit too early. They brought me out too early, and I was, not doing much there. But until we started, but it was an experience. Not a great one. Not a great one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's one of those things is that you go abroad first time, you just don't know what to expect. So of course you come back to the States again for a few years. The Twin City United ABL. What's that?
Yeah.
Is that defunct league? I hate to say it.
Yeah, it sure is. So Magic Johnson, as you know, his agent called me and said, hey, we're putting teams in Texas and Florida for a minor league, and we'd like for you to coach one of the teams and be the general manager. And I said, okay, give me some cities. And I wound up signing with Twin City, which is two cities next to each other, where Texas A&M University is. And we had a great year there. We had a great year, and I had a great team. But we wound up all not getting paid, just like in Qatar. So I started not getting paid from Qatar on.
Yeah, that's one of the unfortunate pitfalls of basketball. Everyone thinks it's glamorous, but a lot of situations, a lot of countries, it's happened here in the UK before, where players, coaches have not got paid. So what sort of league was that, just before we move on? Was that like a summer league, a winter league?
It's what they call semi-pro. So guys were on contracts. Guys were finished with college,
Yeah.
And so it was a chance to play minor league basketball, and which helped me down the road because I saw some really good players. In fact, two of my players I sent to Cheshire before I even went there. I helped Robbie Pierce. He asked me for players. I said, I got two that played for me in Texas. They're really good, and they wound up having really good seasons for them. So I knew they were going to get paid a little more money in it in the UK, because they had an opportunity to get this self in the market. So it worked out for us.
You get another chance to then go abroad. I've got you going to the head coach director of basketball operations for, is it Dankind Academy? Is that correct? In
Yeah,
Nairobi?
yeah.
Now you're
So
there.
the
You're there for a year, weren't you?
yeah, so the Denver Nuggets head of scouting was friends with Robbie Pierce,
Hmm.
and so he put me on a Skype interview with Robbie. He says, "Look, John, we need somebody that's old school, teach these guys the game of basketball from A to Z. They're really raw, like an onion." And he says, "I have to be honest with you. I can only pay you $70 a week. You could stay a room in the house with the other players, and we have a cook and a cleaner. A lady cooks." I says, "You know what? I'll do it." And he was out there. He greeted me, and it was probably Niall the best, the most satisfying experience of all my coaching, as far as teaching the game and showing that it was all worthwhile, because the guys all got better. The guys all came together and we won the championship. We say we won the NBA championship, the Nairobi Basketball Association.
Hey, if it's called the NBA, then it's the NBA, isn't it? But
Yeah, yeah.
whether obviously the world is completely different wherever you travel, but because of your previous experience in Qatar, were you hesitant at all about going to Africa, going abroad again, or you thought, no, this will be different?
Yeah, no, absolutely. My family didn't want me to go, my siblings and everything. And because in Qatar it got a little scary. They take your passport in Qatar, and so they what they do is um they sponsor you. So I was sponsored by the Olympic Committee, but when they weren't paying me, I said I'm going home. They wouldn't give me my passport, and so I was kind of like a hostage almost,
Mm.
and it happened to a couple of other people that I started talking to, and so I was, going to Kenya was saying, why are you doing this? Why are you going to do this again? And sure enough, obviously nothing like that happened, but we got, there was a terrible, terrible terrorist attack while I was in Kenya, and my player was killed with the mother and the grandmother, and the brother was shot, and it was one of the worst days of my life. But that was when I was coaching the international school of Kenya to make some extra money.
Wow. Um, a horrible thing for anyone to experience. Um, I remember speaking to you a good few years ago, and this awful moment aside, you said at the time that the 2 years in Kenya were one of the best experiences of your coaching career.
Yeah, it really
It's,
was. I was different. I looked different. Everybody,
mm,
I was on the spotlight. I was the only, you know, international guy, white guy, whatever you want to say.
mm.
And they resented us. They resented my team, and we kept winning and winning, and people were rooting against us, and we won. And then we played the following year. We start off like 14-0. And Robbie calls me and says, "Hey, the owner of Cheshire wants to fly you out and talk to you." I said, "Okay." So I had a break in my season, and I went out there for a few days, and he was great. Andrew Donaldson was just absolutely incredible. Um, and he says, "Listen, we're not talking about this year, but maybe next year. And if we do next year, we'd like to keep the head coach as your assistant." I said, "Well, I don't know if that's going to work out for him. I mean, I don't know how he'll take it." But so I go back to Kenya, and he calls me. He says, "No, we want you right now. We want you to come now." So he signed me for 2 years, but I only stayed up one. But yeah, that was it. That was the progression.
We have to talk about Cheshire now, 'cause obviously that was the season you came over here. Now, now let's just start. In terms of roster, that season in Cheshire, you had quite a few players, didn't you?
Yeah, it was new to me how the system worked. So I used all my contacts to get players, and I felt like we had some good rookies because the budget wasn't high, and we had a few guys in and out, which was not just costly, but it didn't look good, that we made mistakes. But that's what happens. Sometimes you roll the dice and they make you look good. Sometimes you roll the dice and it's not what your expectations were. And but finally we they spent a little more money and we got some really good talent. And but yeah, they were calling us a revolving door and everything. It was like, once I figured out how to do it and how to recruit and how to sign players, it was a lot easier.
I think one of the times I phoned you during that season because I was working for the BBL media team was literally after you changed some players again, but you'd actually gone on and won. According to Daniel Routledge, you used 19 players that season.
That I did not know.
And in Cheshire terms, because I know they're like short rotations, I was joking that that's almost like three rosters, but it wasn't all, factors you can control, could it? I mean, obviously, yeah, some players were cut, but other players got injured. Some went to other teams, got offers, didn't they?
Yes, yes. It was a combination of different things. Obviously, I made a deal with Gareth Murray. If he'd come join us, and you had a better job in another country, I would allow you to leave. And that's what happened. He wanted to play in France, and so we lost him. And guys were. I know there was a rule where you had to keep a guy for a certain amount of time before you could release him, and um, I guess patience is not one of the virtues that we had early in my stay there, but they wanted to get it right, and I guess winning is the ultimate denominator. So we finally after mixing and matching and doing all that, we got a really strong team put together, and it's important because you want that continuity. You want, when you keep changing your roster, guys can't get used to each other, and you have to reteach the system, and so it's a burden on everybody.
I'm just trying to think. Back then, you would have played at the old Northgate Arena, wouldn't you?
Oh, I love that place. You know why?
Did
Now, you
you?
know why?
You're one of the few, I think.
Well, you know why I loved it?
What?
Because everybody hated coming there.
Mm-hmm.
The floor was horrible. The backboards were terrible. The rings, everything. And we packed the place and it was loud. And it was like people did not want to come play us there. And it was interesting. I liked it. It was a home court advantage. And it really, I liked it, man. I liked that place.
Are there any? We'll talk about obviously the end of the season in a moment, but are any games or any teams or places you went to that stand out from that year in Cheshire?
Yeah. As you guys say, on the bounce, we won 10 on the bounce. Um, but there were some games, we got beaten very badly at Newcastle, and so we knew at, that they were the barometer at that time, and so was Leicester. So we played Leicester at Leicester, and we played Newcastle the next day back to back. But we played Leicester at Leicester on a Saturday, and we lost at the buzzer, and we had them beat, and they were really happy that they beat us because and that showed me that, hey, we've arrived. We've arrived because teams don't usually care if they beat you if you're not good. And so we lost to them at the buzzer, and then we lost to Newcastle by 5 at home, and but at their places it was tough to win. And but that game at Leicester was a game I like to have back. We missed a defensive assignment and left the guy open, and it was a tough one. But we had some games. Durham was in the league back then, and
Mm.
we had some really good Surrey. We went down to Surrey and had some strong games, and we beat London. So Plymouth, they were all exciting. They were all tough games.
What did you make of the style of the talent in what was the BBL at the time?
Yeah, I thought it was underrated. I used to tell people, don't fall asleep on the UK, man. British basketball is better than you think. Back then it was, you know. And I was, you had a lot of guys, British players that went to school in the States. You had a couple of imports. You had 3 Americans and 2 imports, and then the rest guys that either came up the ranks or played for the national team or went to school in the States. So the talent was good, but obviously the real good talent wants to play in the higher leagues. So you'd lose some too.
Was that the year you had was Taylor King with Cheshire?
Yes,
And he
that's a
had
great.
like he averaged like over 20 points a game or something. He had a
Yeah,
really, really good year.
he got
That was the year
MVP.
you were there.
He got MVP of the league. Yeah.
Yeah. The only problem is the BBL website doesn't exist anymore, so it's really hard to find old stats. The amount of time I have to rely on Daniel Routledge. And talking to
A
Daniel
lot.
Routledge,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
Dan said, he said, you were the best color commentator for buying pre-game drinks and snacks. He said, John loved his hot dogs and his coffees, although I only ever accepted the coffee. So you got a chance
Yes.
to do some color commentaries with Daniel Routledge as well.
Yeah. About a half a dozen games. He was great. He was great to work with because he set you up. He really was. He would just lay it out there for you. And it's funny you mentioned hot dogs because Leicester was my spot. I used to love hot dogs there and tea. I don't ever drink coffee, but tea I drink. I drink it like a
Right.
Brit too with milk.
All right.
But I remember some guy yelling at me when I put the milk in too soon. And I started to drink. He goes, "Hey, you got to let the tea bag brew." And ever since then, I've been traumatized. But but in all my contracts, I make them put in. You have to buy me a pregame hot dog before every game.
And Leicester was the place, was it, when you're in the
Yeah,
BBL?
yeah. The women there were great. They knew what I was coming for, a hot dog and a tea, and but I enjoyed working with Dan and because he knew everything about everybody. He was just like an encyclopedia. But it was fun. I look forward to it.
We have to bring you forward to the end of that season. You would get to the playoffs, and then you went out to London Lions, if I recall
Yeah.
correctly, in the playoffs. What are your memories of that? Because obviously Lions finished below you in the table that year because you finished fourth, and I think they finished seventh or eighth or something like that.
Yeah, so it was
Might
our
be
first,
higher.
it was our semifinals.
Mm.
We go down to London, Copper Box, and I wasn't really. It's my fault because I wasn't completely versed on the format of the playoffs. It was aggregate. So we are losing by 8 at the end of the game, and they go in for a layup, and we just let them shoot it. And then I realized, why did we let them shoot that? Now our deficit is 10 going to our place. Well, sure enough, we go up 7 with the ball. My Bulgarian kid, Simeon, hits a three, and I think it either would have tied the game or we would have, took the lead. And the London bench was pointing at the sideline saying he stepped out, which he didn't. Unfortunately, they said he did, and we lost the game by a few points, and we would have been in the championship. But it was heartbreaking. But we had such a up and down season as far as different things. To keep it together was to me was the biggest accomplishment. To keep the guys together throughout all the things that were going on.
There was a quote from someone, I'm not going to mention their name, I'm asking permission to use it, but they basically said, you kept it together during a very tough season in Cheshire. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I mean, we had some incidences on and off the court,
Mm,
unfortunately. And it was more than just coaching, it was
mm,
management and I will never shy away from helping my players, even if they're right or wrong. I will always support them as long as they, are held accountable but we had some. It was at times tumultuous. Other times it was fantastic. Like we were just on top of the world. But it wasn't. It was challenging. To be fair, it was challenging.
I've got a nice stat to give you in a moment, but I'll just hold off it. So obviously you had signed on a 2-year deal. When did you know you weren't coming back for the second year? Was it before the season ended or just after the exit?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of had a feeling something wasn't right, and I'm like, maybe I need to move on, maybe not. I'm willing to come back if they want to honor my contract. And then they hired some people that were on the board that said, we're making changes to anybody with a 2-year contract. So they got rid of some of the players too. I mean, so it wasn't it wasn't fun. It wasn't. I felt like I wasn't appreciated a little at times because of stuff, but it was it was unfortunate. I would have, trust me, I wanted to come back because I felt like we had unfinished business. And for years, I still wanted to come back, whether it's for Cheshire or anybody. I felt like I didn't fulfill my job as far as, the best value of my coaching after I got a year experience.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at your championship record while you were at Cheshire this morning. You had a 26-10 win-loss record. So 72.2% win percentage in the championship. Now, the Jets, then Phoenix, had been in the BBL, now SLB, since 1993. Throughout all those years, there's only 2 seasons where there was a better regular season record than what you achieved in that year. And they both happened before you joined the Phoenix. Robbie Pears had one in the famous Jet Wash season. And there was one, I'm just looking at it now. Paul Smith had one in 2004-05 when they finished
Oh,
top of the championship. Since then, no one has got close to that 72.2% win percentage in the championship. I just thought that's a really great stat, and I just wanted to read it out to you on the podcast. But that just shows you all the things that went on that season, the off-court antics, on-court antics, the changing players. You still recorded one of the best win percentages they ever had in the championship.
yeah, I did not know that, but I tell you what, I felt like it was an okay season. I would have liked to have some games back and change some things, but obviously any coach, when you don't win a couple of close ones, you look at different possessions and you want to it drives you crazy watching the film and everything. But yeah, I mean, I thought 26-10 was fair. It was pretty good. It wasn't great. I would have liked to got to 30 wins. That would have been incredible. But having said all of that, and I had no assistant coach, I had nobody. So I was by myself. And so training and game preparation and game day, everything was me. And I never even looked, and you're making me think about it. I mean, I didn't really think about it back then. I just did what I had to do. But I had good players. That's why I had good players.
Yeah, no one the following season after you left, they didn't even make the playoffs. But I just thought, wow, that's a really good percentage. I started scrolling back through all the previous campaigns since they joined what was the BPL. And like I said, your regular season is number 3 in terms of win percentage, which I thought, was excellent. And you finished, 26-10, but that was a very strong, because you only could only finish 4th in that table, which showed you how strong it
Yeah.
was in the league that year.
Yeah,
But
don't I mean like at Newcastle and Leicester, they were teams that, they had the right formula. They had great support, a beautiful arena. So they were into it, and we aspired to be like them. We really did. And every game was so intense, and so you had to get up for every game, and it was, some trips were long, especially if you didn't come back with a victory. But
you were saying to me earlier about an incident at Leeds.
yes, so I had an incident with a player who was talented, but he missed an easy layup and didn't run back on defense. So I took him out to tell him, "Hey, I'll accept a missed layup, but the running back is unacceptable, and you can't do that. It's a bad look, and this and that." And I went to put him back in. And he says, "I'm not going back in. My back hurts." And then we had a problem, so I wanted to suspend him, and he went over my head to the ownership, and I had to have a meeting. And we were always having meetings, about different things. It's like I never realized how much I had to put out fires all the time. I felt like I was under the microscope, but that's the way it goes, and we got through it, and it made me a better coach for it. So
So you finish your time at Cheshire, and then you go to Georgia. And I point out for listeners, we're talking Georgia, the country, not the US state. How did that all come
yeah,
about?
yeah, that's good that you made that specification, because everybody says, when I say I'm coaching in Georgia, they say, "Where, Atlanta?" And I'm like, no, 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 no. So this club in Georgia wants to hire me for $1,000 a month. It's not a lot of money. I go there, and of course now I'm not getting paid. I wind up coaching the youth teams as well. It was tough. So what happened was one of the youth players says, "Oh, my high school needs a coach." I said, "Well, give me your athletic director's information. I'll write him." Anyway, turns out this American school hires me, and I coached there for 3 years with the pro team also, and we win championship after championship after championship, going to Latvia, Ukraine, all over. With I coached the senior the boys and the senior girls. It was a great, and I got to meet a lot of people that are involved in the government. All their kids went there, like ambassadors and stuff like that. Um, but
What's
while
it
I
like
was,
living there? Sorry.
oh, it was cold but not snowy. It
Hmm.
was very inexpensive. The food was fantastic. They drink wine with everything, which I don't drink, but it's an interesting place. They've been bullied, by a certain country for years, and but I learned a lot. It's a small country, but it's big, and
Hmm.
the water is the best water I've ever had, as far as coming out of the ground. But as I'm becoming well known around the country, I get a phone call from, I don't know if you know this name, Zaza Pachulia,
Hmm.
and he says, "Hey, John, I'm so and so. I'd like to talk to you about my academy. Um, you don't have to coach kids, but I want you to train my coaches at the American way." And so he hired me, and it was a good experience. But they had a lot of bad habits.
Yeah.
Those countries, they smoke a lot, they scream a lot, they lean on the walls, they're on their phones. So I had to really change everything with them. But
And did you? That's like, were you able to get them out of these habits?
a couple, not all of them, but they respected me, and I made some
Mhm.
good friends, and to this day, and um, it's a country that's more and more talents coming out of there, coming to the States. So it's really it's a booming basketball country.
And this was Tbilisi.
Tbilisi, the capital, yes.
Yeah. And what's it, just for you finish on Georgia? What's the city like? I've heard of it, but I've never been there. Is it a
Yeah,
nice place to live in?
it's a typical city. It has different neighborhoods, some where the diplomats live, and some, but it's very clean. Some they have wild dogs that will run around, packs of dogs, so you got to be careful with that. But it's and obviously in the middle of the city where everything is very busy, but not that bad. And there's everybody drives a taxi, which is a Mercedes Benz, which it sounds like it's prestigious, but it's not. These are all impounded cars that they bought for a couple $1,000s, and the weirdest thing about the driving there was they have some cars that have the steering wheel on the left side, and they have some cars that have the steering wheels on the right side, and they're all going in the same direction. So I was like, oh my goodness.
That's obviously a lot of imported cars there then.
Yeah, yeah, and but it's a nice city. They have some government issues, obviously some corruption and everything, but it's they're a strong people, and they like to they're very very proud.
So, John, just for the purposes of the podcast, we took a little break and then we're recording again. But while we had a little break, I want to take you back in this about you were talking about obviously the playoff defeat to the Lions, and while you were talking about that, I had an image of Dan Rowledge in my head because he's obsessed with playing to the final buzzer. Every point counts. And I was thinking, I bet if Dan's listening to this podcast on the road to Cheshire or somewhere, he's going to be screaming, "Yeah, that's why you play to the buzzer." But anyway, that's just a little aside. So
He's
we were
right.
talking, yeah, we were talking about Georgia, but you had a little spell in China, a very short one, didn't you?
Yes. So another NBA guy says, "Hey, they're looking for a coach in China in this second league, which is still very good, but you're gonna have to get two NBA players with you." And I went out there. The guy GM is fantastic, fantastic guy, and it's just it's a different place, man. It's a different place. It's not a clean place, and for me, for my standards, very busy. people all over the streets, cars, bikes, motorcycles, buses, and polluted, and just not healthy, not a healthy environment. But when you pay good money, that's why you have to pay good money to get somebody to come out there.
Mhm.
So I went there and I'm training the guys, and we're training 3 times a day. And I'm like, this is too much for the guys. They're gonna get injured. And they wouldn't listen. And sure enough, some guys were getting hurt. They brought in this old Chinese coach, and he didn't speak any English. I had an interpreter, and he wound up feeling a little threatened by me.
Mhm.
So I kind of felt it, and it was confirmed. But anyway, bottom line is, I had 2 good players from the NBA, Josh Powell and another player who was MVP of the D League. And they were scoring like crazy, and you know, and then one game, the interpreter says to me, "Coach, please don't yell at the referees today." I said, "What do you mean? Don't yell?" I go, "You're my interpreter. What are you telling me this for?" He goes, "Please, we're playing a team on the road. They don't have any Americans. I understand. We're gonna win big. We're gonna win big. I know that. Why would I get upset?" Well, because we're not going to win today. The referees are getting paid extra to the from the other home team. I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Whatever you do, don't make a money sign or anything like that. Just sit there and don't argue." I said, "Okay." I feel really weird that you're telling me this, but okay. And we had a beautiful bus, by the way, $1 million bus. The guy was a billionaire, this 29-year-old owner. So sure enough, one play, ball goes out of bounds, clearly off of them, and they they give them the ball. Then another play happens where a guy has a clear layup and they call a foul. And they wouldn't go near him and one. So now my Americans are coming up to me and say, "Coach, why aren't you defending us? You always get our backs." I go, "I'll tell you after the game." So after the game, we lose, and obviously we're on the bus, and I called the interpreter over, and I said, "Owen, come here." I said, "Next time you know about this, because I had a deal where on the road, if you win, you get $600 in your pocket, and at home, you get 300 extra, like a bonus."
Win bonus, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I wasn't getting 600. But after that, I went home. I said, I'm not being part of this. This is not, I don't care how much you give me. So it was short. Yes, it was short.
Yeah.
But I've been back since. I've taken some travel teams, you know. Some guys from the UK played for me, like Kid Washington from Leicester. He was with me. So I went there 3 times. I don't know why I didn't learn my lesson after the first 2 times, but I did. I guess the money was luring. But that was my stint in China.
That's a case of like I can't be part of this. I'm out, basically, isn't it? Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I just, I have some, integrity.
yeah. It is. I prefer an audio podcast, but it's one of those occasions where I wish, in a way, it was video because I sort of open mouth there while you were talking about that
I
because
could
it's
see you.
unbelievable. Yeah, yeah. The listeners can't. So obviously China, that was during your time, when you're around Georgia. After that, I can't ask you about this one. May to December 2018, you ended up being head coach in the Maldives. Now, I don't know if that come about.
Okay. So I get a call from an agent, an Italian woman who I knew from the States.
Hmm.
And she says, "John, I have a potential job for you. It's a national team." I said, "That's my dream, is to coach a national team. I want to take a team to the Olympics. I was my dream."
Mm.
And she goes, "Oh, good, because they need someone like you, and I'm willing to sign the deal." I said, "I don't care where it is. If it's in Siberia, I don't care." She goes, "It's a little warmer there where you're going." I said, "Okay, where?" And she says, "The Maldives." So I go, of course, right away. I go on my computer. I went, "Holy moly, look at this beautiful place." And I go there, and um, it's not for a lot of money, but it was an incredible experience and a beautiful place. And believe it or not, we had to play in our region. In our region, you have Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nepal, Bhutan, India, Sri Lanka, you know, and Bangladesh, and us. Well, we train in India. We go to India, which is north of where we were.
Mhm.
And then from there, right on the border, we go into Bangladesh. I didn't have a point guard, and my biggest guy was 6'3" which in centimeters is not a lot. And we wound up going to the gold round and lost, but it was a good run for guys that really had no business being in the gold round. These guys had day jobs. They worked at the airport. They worked in customs. All good guys. I mean, I love those guys. They were really nice. But and of course, during Ramadan, we had to train late at night at midnight. And we'd eat after that, and it was an incredible experience. But unfortunately, they stopped paying me, and I left. I got a call from another agent saying, I told him I'm leaving. I'm leaving the Maldives. They're not paying me. There's some corruption going on between the presidential race, and so I was upset about that because I really wanted to continue. Um, I mean, I was doing scouting reports on the beach. It was 87 degrees every day. Every day it was 87 degrees. They didn't drink alcohol. They didn't eat pork. They're basically, of Indian descent almost. So picture that scenario. Then I get a job to go to Denmark, which is cold every day, no sunshine. They drink at the age of 15. They have 15 million pigs for 5 million people. It's the total opposite, and they're all white. Total opposite. So I went from that one place to another.
I'd say after the cold of Georgia and obviously the situation in China to suddenly go somewhere like, oh, I can sit and do my scouting reports on a lovely beach. Because obviously Maldives
Oh,
is a very popular tourist destination.
everybody wants to go there. Everybody I said I was in the Maldives. Oh, I've always wanted to go there. I go, it's not cheap. It was cheap for me because it was inexpensive because I was a government official. I was working for the government, but it's very expensive.
So obviously, so you Denmark, and then what was your job there? What were you doing?
Okay, so there was a small club that was trying to move up the ladder, and they were allowing me to bring in one American. So I brought in this Division 3 All-American, and he destroyed it. He was unbelievable. He had an incredible run, but again, the budget was very low, and things were not good. It was poorly run, and I wound up leaving to go back home. I said, it's time to go home, and this academy, huge academy in Florida, IMG Academy, offered me a job there, but then COVID hit, so I had a little break. But we did get the team up the ladder. I mean, we moved up. I mean, we moved up from last place to right around first. We were respectable. Now they're in the first league, and they've lost. They've gone through like 6, 7 coaches. They just don't have the money. That's unfortunate.
And then obviously you got a couple of other things around Florida,
Yep.
which takes you up to 2024 last year, and you end up going out to Saudi Arabia for a year.
Uh-huh. Again, my friend from the NBA says my friend who's a big agent in the Middle East they're looking to start up this program again where they had canceled their basketball program due to scandalous affairs. And I said, okay, listen, I was working at my school, Westchester. I was working there in the office. Like my coach wanted me to come and work. I had great benefits. So I was like, listen, I'm not leaving unless I really don't want to go that far anymore, unless the money's right. And they said, oh, okay. And they made it right. And then I found out that what happened was the government used to fund all the clubs. Now they say it has to be privately owned. So I found out the owner of my club, Katsia, is owned by the biggest and wealthiest company in the world, Aramco Oil. So now I say, oh, they got a lot of money. And again, I had a 2-year deal. And in the first year, when you're starting out in a club that wants to move into the leagues, you can only play with locals. So I only had Saudis. And if you win or come in second, you move up, and now you can bring in imports, right? Anyway, bottom line is we train. Finally, we have the tournament. Oh, before that, the Saudi government asked me to do a huge clinic. I don't know if you saw that online, but I did a big thing for the federation. It was really fun in Jeddah, really nice. With another Serbian coach, he was great. But anyway, sorry to go off there a little bit, but I we train our guys. We have the tournament, and they go, "Oh, you better win because you guys got the best team. You guys been training hard." I go, "Don't take any of these teams lightly." Sure enough, one of the teams, unbeknownst to me, at the last second brought in four guys from the top league, and they said, "Play for us, and if we win, you guys get half the money because you if you win first, second, or third, you get lots of money." Anyway, we wound up losing by four. We should have still beat them with even with their best player, those national team players. We lose by four, so we come in second. And my job, basically, even though we didn't win the championship, they move up to the next league, and they got like $600,000 for it. I was supposed to get some. Now they bring me in the office and they say, "Well, John, we spent a lot of money on the budget, and we're going to really focus on football. We're having a World Cup here, and we're really going to downsize everything." And so I left. They wanted to cut my salary. I said, "No, I'm out." They owed me for 10 months, a lot of money.
It's a sad thing because you've got to experience so much of the world over the
Yeah,
30 years plus you've been coaching, and the same old story pops up on occasion, doesn't it?
yeah,
Where you don't get paid. And it
yeah.
happens so much in this sport. We all see the glory, NBA players earning tens and millions of dollars, what have you, and players earning big salaries in Europe. But unfortunately, there are so many situations where you go to a situation, you go there in good faith, you work your rear end off, I shall say, for these people, and you don't get paid.
I tried to figure it out, and I'm like, sometimes it's the money is so small that it's not worth fighting because if you go to FIBA, you have to pay like 15 grand just to have a case. And if they find them wrong, they just close up and open up with a different name. But they know they got you because you're so many miles away from home. Where are you going to go? You're going to stay. But so the minute I see a red flag now, I'm out of here. And it was unfortunate. I made a lot of friends in Saudi. I learned a lot about the culture. It was really an interesting place. Very hot, very, very hot. I mean, so hot my car would shut off, my phone would shut off. There was sandstorms, but for the most part, it's pretty. There's a lot of American restaurants and stores, and it was easy to get around. But yeah, you're right. It's just I look back at what my father used to tell me, and he used to say, "Show me the envelope if you want me," but he also used to say, "Don't let money define who you are." So I did it for the love. I never coached for the money, but this Saudi trip I was going because it had to be worth my while to go. I wasn't trying to squeeze them. I just said, I'm not traveling. I'm 60 years old. I'm not traveling unless it's worth it.
Because it's one of those things we've been trying to, since I started the podcast, been trying to get you on, but it wasn't possible because you were in Saudi at the time, and the time difference I just couldn't
Yeah.
make really work around my job and everything. But it's absolutely great to get you on today, John. But obviously, yeah, downside not getting paid is when you look back on your career today, what have been the highlights of that time? What stands out as like, I will always treasure that memory, that game, or that place I lived for a year. What really stands out for you?
First of all, Westchester Community College. That's one of the what's even though it was the beginning, it was one of the most memorable things that I could never thank and give back enough for Westchester. But the D League was absolutely an incredible experience. 3 years there, uh, uh, at the highest level. Guys, some of my guys moving up to the NBA. It was just a dream. And I used to tell people, guys, coaches that used to complain when we go, be in the same room. And I said, "Why are you complaining? There was only 16 teams when I was coaching. 16." I said, "We're one of 16 in the world coaching at the NBA Development League." So we're lucky, and we are. When you wake up, you thank God and you say, I am very lucky to be a coach, because the worst day of a coach is probably, is better than some people's best days. But Westchester, the D League, and in Cheshire, Africa was absolutely. I loved it. I loved it because it was just you satisfying to see guys develop and become champions. And the Cheshire thing was, even though I had ups and downs there, there's no fans. Like, I've never, since all my life, I've never seen fans like that. They're so loyal and so grateful and so supportive. I mean, I go to the UK and I stay over. I stay with them. They put me up when I come there. I want to go see a game this year, so I'm going to be visiting.
Have
I
you
mean,
been to their
just
new arena since they built it?
yeah, a couple of times. On the way back from Maldives, and Dave Powell did an article about me, from the Bronx to the Maldives. But yeah, it's the Cheshire fans were. I wish I had fans every place I went like that. It was just, in Qatar there was nobody. There was no fans. But those three countries. I mean, obviously the D League and Westchester, and then Africa and England and the UK. And I had a little stint at an academy in Spain, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed the country. It's probably my favorite country that I visited, and China being the worst. But yeah, those are the highlights and the lowlights, and but that's all going in my book there, Niall. I'm writing a book. My brother's going to write it because he's so articulate and he writes novels, and my sisters will hopefully fund it. But yeah, it's going to be an incredible book. And what do you think of this title, Niles? Called for Traveling.
Well, you have traveled the world and you got plenty of calls to take you there. So, yeah, I like it. So, let's finish on that then, John. What persuaded you to say, you know what, I want to write a book about this?
Yeah, I mean, my brother said you should be taking notes everywhere you go. You should be collecting things. And I read a lot of books, basketball books, but I don't think anybody's had my my route, my journey. Everybody's has their own journey. I'm not saying I'm better than them, but I'm just saying I don't think anybody's has my some can relate to it, some can't. Some want to come overseas, and maybe the book will help them understand and prepare them and be ready, because you're not in your country anymore. You're in another country, and things have to adapt. They're not going to change. You have to change. You're the one that's under the microscope. So I want to teach the game and give back, and I think this book will do that.
So, have you any timeline then, John, on when you would like to put this book together?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the stages where we're gathering information and pictures and recordings and interviews, and um, uh, my brother is very busy with his writing. You could look his name up. Michael Coffino writes so many books, memoirs and stuff like that. So he's really good at it. So I'm looking a year away, maybe, and when it does get finished, I'm definitely going to reach out to you, send you a nice little autograph copy. Not that it's going to be a bestseller, but you might you might be able to say, oh yeah, I remember when he told me that, and now you could see it in writing.
Well, based on what you told me in this short interview today, then yes, I think it's something I definitely want to read because the thing is, as well, it is not all great as we've already said in this podcast. There are pitfalls in any sport when whether you're at home or abroad, and it'd be good to highlight the good and the bad. Like I said, as you said, to sort of make people aware of the potential pitfalls, what could be along the road. But well, I wish you well with that, Johnny. I look forward to reading it. But it's been absolutely fantastic to get you on today. So like I said, it's been a while in the making, and I wish you all the best for November and your Hall of Fame induction. Just very quickly, round off again. Where's that? That's the Westchester Hall of Fame. That's correct, isn't it?
The Westchester Sports Hall of Fame, but they're having it at a restaurant called Giuliano's in New Rochelle, New York, which is another town in Westchester,
Hmm.
on a Friday, November 21st. But I'm going to bring a box of tissues because I'm told there's players going to be talking, and coaches and friends, and other guys are getting inducted as well. There's going to be a football player and a golfer. So it's going to be a really fun night, and I'm looking forward to it. And Niall, I really appreciate your time. And like I said, everybody thinks it's all glory traveling around the world, which is nice, it's true, but there are, it's not what it's all cracked up to be. And I got a job to do, and you know, just it's basketball.
And just a final thing on that induction, like I know, like when the NBA won, they get someone to introduce them. Have you got someone to introduce you, or is that a different
Yeah,
setup?
yeah. So the head coach that hired me, he's going to start, and then Jeff Rulin, a former NBA All-Star, he's going to talk, and then my brother. So I don't know which guy is really going to introduce me last. Probably my coach, but he's 81 years old, and he's just a legend. And
Just for the podcast, his name again?
Ralph Arrieta.
Yeah.
Ralph Arrieta. Yeah.
It's going to be an emotional night for you.
Yes. Yes. I want to get my tears out of the way. Maybe I'll eat some onions or something. I don't know.
There you go. And that can go in your book as well, can't it? Talking about that.
Yeah, that'll be the chapter. Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad we finally got around to recording this today, John. Thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. And I wish you all the best for the future. And obviously, I'll be keeping in touch with you to find out where you end up next.
Sure. Now, I enjoy your podcast, and keep up the good work, man. And I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
And finally, if you're enjoying what we do, please make sure to like, subscribe, or even share the pod on your social media. Every little bit of support helps. Until next time, my name's Niall Gray. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Eurostep Brit podcast, a hoops and hockey production.